Awesome.
Welcome back to the Unconventional Coach Podcast. I can't even remember what episode this is. I was meant to check. I think it's like 53 or something. And I've got a guest today with me all the way from Australia. I've got Georgia. So I'm going to hand over to her so she can give herself a little introduction.
Hello, thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm all the way over in Australia from a little state called Adelaide. Jamie doesn't know of it. I don't know if you guys will. So I'm a health and fitness coach. I've been in the industry for 3.5 years now. And I've just moved from a commercial gym just to online now. So spreading my wings, going online, which is, really, really nice. So I'm very, health and fitness, training, nutrition. I'm very about the wellness side of things though. So the reason I've gone online is to be able to focus more on that mindset and being able to work through all those limiting beliefs people hold around themselves, food, training, because I just really believe if you have all this internal buildup and this trauma and these negative beliefs around certain things, you can't have a lifelong change with your training and with your nutrition. So it's really getting to the bottom of that for me, working through educating on training and nutrition. That's a massive one, because how do you know what you're doing if you're not educated? And then implementing it to make lifelong change.
I love that. I love how you got straight into like the trauma and like the dealing with all the, I say like in such a British way, I'm like, you need to deal with all the crap up here in order to move forward. And it's so true. And it's funny because I think I saw a video on your Instagram, like obviously all the reels and everything, because Instagram now is a video platform, isn't it? Which is, it's so frustrating. It's so funny. I saw this video and it was this guy and he was just standing there and he was going, and it was like, I'm just doing a video to stay relevant, but he's like just doing stuff. And I was like, that's so funny. That's so true. Like as soon as that, I was like, right, I need to get back on these reels then and start making them. But I love your content. Like it comes across so like genuine as well. And I think as a online coach, obviously there's so much, I want to say there's so much competition, but equally there isn't, because there's so many people out there. And I had a lovely message from a coach the other day, and she messaged me and she was like, hey, I know this may sound a bit weird, but I'm actually not going to be coaching anymore, because she's going into teaching. She was like, I followed you for a few years. I've got a lady who I work with right now, but I actually obviously won't be able to coach her. I was going to give her your details if that's okay. And I was so flattered because I thought, oh my God, like that's so lovely and so genuine, because do you know what I mean? I think other people would be like, oh, I'm not coaching anymore, but I don't really want her to go to anyone else, because I think there's that element of competition. But I think there is just so many clients out there to help, and it's so individual who you sort of gravitate to and who you want to work with. And I think as well, like online coaches, because everyone's getting into online coaching now, do you know what I mean? It's become it's the next logical move, really, isn't it? From in-person PT to then being able to have more freedom. And I think so many people are jumping to the gun of it so quickly, and they don't actually realize how hard it is to build up a client base initially, and then actually have the skill set to be a good coach. But obviously you have great experience with like the gym floor and everything. What sort of led you to take that turn from PT to online? Was it all the stuff going on with COVID? Because that's what it was for me. I was a in-person PT, and I was working in a private gym, and obviously COVID hit in the UK and we were in like a full-on lockdown for 6 months. So I just put all my clients online, and I had some online clients already, but it just took off, and I was like, right, well, I'm not going back to PT then, because I'm here now. Is that kind of what happened to you?
Yeah, that's awesome that you were like pushed into it, and then it was like, fuck yeah, this is good. Can I swear on this?
Yeah. Yeah, of course you can.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it wasn't because of COVID. So COVID, we've been very, very lucky here, especially in Adelaide. Like you may have heard of places like Sydney and Melbourne. They haven't been doing great. Melbourne's been in lockdown more than they've been out of lockdown, but we've been very, very free here because we're smaller. So everyone just stays home, does not go out, and there's not as much contraction. I guess people aren't,
Yeah.
getting it. So that's been awesome. For me, it was, yeah, working on the gym floor, building up a business and working so much, so much. Working like, 50 clients a week and going to absolute burnout. And
Yeah.
like I loved it 100%. But when you are doing one-on-one, the way my business model was, it was the only logical thing you can do is to have more and more clients. And my prices were like, they weren't high, they were just average. So it was like, yeah, I had to keep on taking more clients. And if I wanted to make money, if I wanted to succeed, that's what I thought you had to do.
Mm,
And that comes back to like the hustle and the grind, the very masculine way of doing everything, which is not how it's being done these days. Like a lot of people are showing you can work less
yeah.
and be more successful. You don't have to run yourself in the ground to be successful. So it really took that burnout for me and just being like, what am I doing? Like I can't go anywhere with this. I'm kind of stuck with this. So then I decided to make a change and, like upped my prices by quite a bit, had lesser clients, was doing some group training in the gym, et cetera, et cetera. And then, yeah, I really got into the mindset side of things. So really became educated, have a great mentor, a great coach who has taught me so much. And everyone who was online was having amazing results, like amazing, because yeah, we were working through their mindset, we were working through all of the internal stuff
Mm,
that you don't work through as much on a gym floor.
yeah.
When you're there, it's like 45 minutes to an hour of your time. It's your full attention. Like your attention cannot be anywhere else. So as much as like I did love it, it drains your energy and it takes away from what I was wanting to do. So I was like, fuck it, like I'm just going to do it. And it was a really big step for me because yeah, I just never believed like, oh, I can take my business online. It's not really, more people are doing it, but where I'm from, it's not a massive thing. Like everyone's in the gym. But I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, no, fuck it. Like this is what I want to do. This is what I've always wanted to do. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take the leap. And quitting at the gym, it's like a 12-week contract. So you've got to give 12 weeks notice, 3 months. So it was a long time coming. By the end of it, I was like, yes, I'm so ready.
Yeah.
And this is my first week of actually being online and we're in
Really?
lockdown. So
Oh, that's so exciting though. That's so exciting. I love it. Like I honestly, I love talking about business and just
mm,
kind of I love what you said of talking about like the burnout and stuff. Like I completely relate, and I think it's it's so hard because now it's trying to find that balance. Like I've got a 2-year old, and when I was pregnant with him, I was still working like yeah, like 40 odd clients a week, up at 6 a.m.,
mm,
home at 9 p.m. I did that
yeah.
all the way through my pregnancy as well. So I think I literally stopped a month before he was due, but he was 2 weeks late. So I had 6 weeks off, but I wasn't off. I was still working online. And I had maybe, I think when I stopped PT, I said to my clients, I'm going to have like a few months off, obviously, to have my son. Um, so I'll put you online. And it's always been something that I wanted to do. And this is like obviously like 2 and a bit years ago. I was like, it's
Mm,
always something I wanted to do because my partner's very like businessy, and he's like, right, if you want to keep moving forward, you need to either create programs. And I tried to do programs before, but it's so hard because they're not what people actually need. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
People don't need necessarily an 8-week program where and obviously you can get amazing 8-week programs out there where they provide you like workshops and stuff around mindset and like all that, which is great. But the majority of them, it's just like, here's your training, here's your nutrition, go on your way sort of thing. And I was just like, I can't do that. Like, people don't need it. And it also doesn't look good on me or my business, because people come for an 8-week program and you never lie. You say, look, this is what you get. You get your training, nutrition, check-ins, la, la, la. But you don't get any of that added stuff that you get with one-to-one. And I hate programs like that because it's not what people need. But I think people think they need it because a lot of people would rather save money than actually, do you know what I mean, actually really commit. You were talking about like limiting beliefs and stuff, which I love as well. What would you say is like the biggest limiting belief you deal with like your clients, or like your top 3? And I think they'll probably be the same, so maybe we can work through those a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to say on something you said, like, what was it, like going through for a cheap program. Like, one, totally agree with you with those 6-week, 8-week programs. Like, you're better off investing in a coach who has your well-being at their best interest, wants you to make a legit change, and you're better off spending a little bit more than doing all of these programs, this 6-week, this 8-week, because by the time you do all these 6-week and 8 weeks trying to actually make a lifelong change, you've spent way more than you would on one coach who is going to change things for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So I find that so important. So many people think, oh yeah, if I just do a cheap program, I'll be able to look this way and yeah, that'll be me done. I'll be amazing. Yeah. But it's not the case.
No, absolutely. And I think some people could do it. Do you know what I mean? If you've got someone who is like me, for example, I know what to do, obviously, because I'm a coach, but sometimes it is good to have that accountability and someone there to take the stress away. So I think if you are someone who is in a good place with food, aka not binging, not going, oh, I can't have this, can't have that, I'll have a cheat day on the weekend. If you're not like that, if you're in a good mindset with food, you understand calories, you understand training, then maybe a program like that would be okay. But what I find, because I've run these programs before, and I've never liked them, because the people that sign up to them are people that need a lot of help, but they don't want to put the money where the mouth is, as such. You know what I mean? They don't want to invest that money. And then it's like, oh, but that's kind of your problem. Do you know what I mean? You need to be able to do it in order for me to help you. And I've done it in the past where I've had people sign up to a program like that, and I've just ended up being like, no, I'm just going to take you on as a one-to-one client because you need it. But then I'm doing myself a disjustice because I'm not charging what I should be charging to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. And that puts you differently to other coaches as well, because you actually want to see change and you actually want them to succeed. Like, a lot of people just pump them through a 6-week program that might not be for them, and they don't care because it's a quick buck. And that's what differentiates a good coach from a coach that's just not in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all the other stuff, like you say. And I think so many kind of coaches do just like tread the water through. Like, I love it when in the past I have clients that ask me a question or they talk about something and I'm like, oh, I don't actually know. Like, and as soon as I have that, I'm like, right, looking into it. And like, this past year, I'll be 100% honest, I did not have a clue about the menstrual cycle. I didn't have a clue because no one taught me. You don't learn it on your PT course. And now I've done so much research into that, and I knew what it did. Do you know what I mean? I was like, right, when you're on your period, you get cravings, you're low mood. I knew that, and I would adjust my approach to it. So, right, we'll bring your steps down a little bit. We'll make your give you more calories while you're hungry. Do you know what I mean? I knew what to do, but I didn't know all the ins and outs of it. And I love now having a client sign up with me, and I don't know if you find this in Australia, but honestly, no woman in the UK has a clue about her period. Like, no clue. They're like, oh, I bleed three weeks of the month, and then I won't bleed for 6 months, and then that's it. And I'm like, what? Well, like, that's not okay. Like, let's dive into this. Let's see what's going on. Like, the amount of clients I've had with hormonal issues that have never been diagnosed. Obviously, I don't diagnose them. I say, right, it sounds like this. Go and see a doctor, a hormonal specialist, or do you know what I mean? I've had to not outsource, but do you know what I mean? Refer out clients to have like CBT and stuff like that. And I think it's so important to be in a secure place as you're within yourself to be able to do that, to actually help people, because I'm not a counsellor. Do you know what I mean? I've had clients come to me with like a lot of trauma or issues that they didn't even know, and you're like, right, well, you need to, do you know what I mean? You need to seek that in other areas. And I think a lot of the time people believe that when you get a coach, that will solve everything. And really, it's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And people look for such surface levels, well, they have such surface level goals because it's like, yeah, they're not feeling good about themselves, but it's coming from trauma. It's coming from this root cause. But then they're like, okay, well, if I lose weight and if I follow this program, then I'll feel really confident about myself and that will just all go away. But it's like, that's just putting a band-aid on things. Sure, it might work and you might follow it and you might feel really fucking good, but it's not going to change forever. It's not going to be that way forever. It just takes that coming up again because you've suppressed it for a bit and everything crumbles down. And that's why I think, yeah, it's really, really cool to refer out. And it's really awesome to be like, hey, like I actually don't know this. Let me refer you to someone else. And that's so important as a coach as well. Like even being in the gym floor, if people, like I've done lots of prehab, rehab courses, but if someone comes to me and I'm not 100% sure on something, I'm like, here, go see this physio. Like we don't need a guess around here. And it's people's well-being you're working with. It's people's, like you said, their minds you're working with, their trauma. That's not something you can't just open up Pandora's box of all this fucking trauma and then just lay it out on the table and not know how to deal with it, because that's more traumatizing for them.
Yeah. I think when you like coming back to sort of like the difference between PT and online, like I found the jump, and I don't know whether it was because I had a lot more clients, but obviously when you take on like online clients, you're looking at everything. And obviously when you are a PT as well, like towards the end of when I was a personal trainer, I had all my clients on the app I use now. So I had them on the app. So I was looking at their nutrition, I was looking at other areas of their lifestyle and so on. But the difference between PT and like online is just so much more involved. And I think you touched on it earlier about sort of like protecting your energy. And I want to kind of get into that because I love that side of things. And I think since kind of like COVID and stuff, I've really been feeling like a pull to look at that sort of stuff a little bit more, in terms of like the manifesting and limiting beliefs. And I was saying it to, I love it, I'm like, yeah, got my crystals, like get them out. But I was talking to a client, I was talking to a few clients about this. So I have a lady, and she's done amazing, she's lost loads of weight, we've done it at like a really good pace. Like I've been working with her for probably nearly a year and we're a couple stone down, but she's in a really good place with her food, really good place with her training. Do you know what I mean? Just all the things you want. And then she's like, I get to this point at like 92, 93 kilos and I just don't lose any more weight. And I'm like, right, You can't say that to yourself, because you might be able to tell me this, but I can't remember what the term of it actually is, where you have that belief, and then because you have that belief, your brain will take the path that aligns with those beliefs. But I can't remember the term or what it is. Can you remember?
Yeah, so it's like a neural pathway.
That's
So
what it is.
yeah, you make neural pathways in 2 seconds. So you can literally make change in an instant. All it takes is for you to be like, okay, I can get, is it stone? 90 stone?
Yeah. Stone is like 2 stone is like 12 and a bit kilos.
Okay. Okay. So if she thinks she can't go below 93,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
it's like, yeah, choosing a new belief, choosing a new pathway and saying, yeah, I can get below 90 stone.
mm,
But then it's that change has happened in a second, that's formed, but then it's using that pathway over and over again. So
mm,
that's where habits come into it. And that's where affirmations come into it as well. Because if you don't believe you're beautiful, say you don't like your body, you think your stomach's too big, for example, and every time you look in the mirror, you're like, oh my God, my stomach's too big. And you're just going to keep using that pathway again and again and again. Like, think of a dirt track. It's like really ingrained. You can see all the tracks, and that's the one people take because that's a path.
yeah.
And then changing that to, wow, I love my body. You can build that in an instant, but now it's using that pathway over and over again until that old one that never disappears, but it can grow over. So,
Mm,
like, it can rain, dirt can go, leaves can go in it, and then it's not a path anymore. So,
mm,
you don't take that. This is the path that's ingrained that you're
yeah.
beautiful, and that's the one you now take.
Yeah.
So, change happens quick, but you've got to embody it like fuck, and you've got to work on it.
Yeah. And you got to take that action. Like,
Mm.
and I love the analogy of the dirt track. I haven't heard that one before, so that's really good.
Mm.
And I was saying to my client, obviously, when you tell yourself something like, I can't get over this weight, you will be taking the action necessary necessary to not get past that weight. Do you know what I mean? So I said to her, you'll be, without knowing it, without even knowing it, you'll be putting less effort in, because you've said to yourself, that's like saying, oh, I'm not going to achieve this goal, and then trying to achieve it. It's like, well, you're not going to be into it,
Mm.
because you've said to yourself, I'm not going to achieve it. So you're going to take the actions
Mm.
necessary to not achieve it, as opposed to achieving it. So the way you talk to yourself, and I'm sure you bang on about this to your clients, is so important. Like, I as well, I'm really niggly with stuff like that. Like, if a client says to me, like, oh, I've been such a pig this weekend, or even though they've said it in like a jokey term, I'm like, don't say that. Do you know what I mean? Like, even
Yeah.
jokingly,
Yeah.
because your body and your mind don't know necessarily the difference between sort of the context of it. So the way you
Mm.
talk to yourself is so important. Obviously, like you say about the affirmations, I'm interested to know, what are your affirmations? Do you have daily affirmations?
I don't believe in having a single affirmation. Like, I don't believe in having, okay, you're not happy in your body, so use I'm beautiful.
Mm,
If it doesn't feel right for you and it's not meeting you where you're at,
mm,
saying I'm beautiful, it's like it can be a really big jump for some people. So it can feel uncomfortable as fuck. So you're resisting it and
mm,
it's not going to stick.
mm.
So it's like wherever you're at, it's meeting that. So if you do feel really, really down about your body, it's like, okay, I'm learning to love my body. I really like the way my body looks in these gym clothes. And
Mm,
just keep on going and going on about that until you start to feel like, okay, like, yeah, I look really good in these gym clothes. Yeah, like, yeah, I look good. And then the next time you do them, you can up it a little notch because you'll be feeling better.
yeah,
But yeah, again, it's like it's dealing with the root cause of shit because you can do all the affirmations you want as well. And yeah, it will help dramatically, but you've actually got to shift what's actually going on so you can
yeah,
genuinely believe that.
yeah. And I think a lot of it, and like, I've done a bit of, like, obviously I'm not an expert, I've done a bit of counselling. I'm actually going to go back to counselling, because I'm finding in myself that I have a lot of trauma that I'm holding at the moment. So I want to go back and dive into things like and get to my root cause. Like when I look at some things that have happened in my life, like it's ridiculous some of the stuff that I've like done and dealt with. Um, and I do think that obviously does make you stronger, but there does come a point where they hold you back. Like I'm in a place now where I felt really alone in my pregnancy, and I'm like, do I want more children? And it's really like it's there. I'm like, oh, like as soon as I think about having more children, I'm like, no. And like I think with my son, I think I have a trauma bond to him, like as well as like a deep, obviously, connection as a mother, but literally, and I don't, I think all mums listening to this will understand. I think it's really hard if you're not a mum to understand the gravity of it, but the fear around just like him, like I could literally be happy, just living my day. I'll be driving, like taking him to the park, and I'll be like, what if a car crashes into me right now and we both die? Do you know what I mean? There's so much fear and stuff there that I need to work through that have only just come up for me more recently. I think as he's obviously getting a bit older, he's going to nursery now, and like I'm just like, oh, like trying to hold on to it as much as I can. But I think it's so good to do that. And like I know clients of mine that have been through a lot, and I'm just like, you need to go and get help and work through these, because and a lot of it stems from childhood as well, like even like simple things like in terms of like nutrition and kind of relationship with food and how that goes on in later life, things like eating all the food on your plate. Like the amount of times clients will say, I just can't leave my plate with food on it. I'm like, right, well, that comes from your childhood. Or being told that obviously if you're good, you can get this and stuff like that. And I always make a point with my son, I don't say to him, if you're good, you can have this. Like I don't use food as a reward. I don't force him to eat all of his food. If he doesn't want to eat all of his food, I'm like, that's absolutely fine. We take that away. Do you know what I mean? Just like being more in tune with stuff like that. And people don't get it. Like I had a lady who I was working with I worked for her for a few months, and it was really challenging because she had so many other issues that I couldn't help her. And I said to her, look, I can't help you. You need to get help. But I did help her realize that, like I was sort of diving into things. I'm like, right. And I said to her, what was your childhood like? And her childhood was really challenging. I think she had 6 brothers. They didn't really have a lot of money, so food was quite scarce, and she had a binge eating disorder, obviously because of probably other things have gone into it, but a lot of it I think was rooted to her childhood. And she started doing therapy, and then she messaged me like a few months later, and she was like, I've made really good progress doing my therapy, like thank you very much. And I was like, oh, like that makes me so happy.
Yeah. And it's important for people to know that trauma doesn't have to be some big event that happens. Like definitely it can be terrible situations, but trauma, it's inevitable. Like your son will feel trauma and it won't be your fault, but it can be from however you perceive anything. So you could say, like as a child, I could have heard my dad say, oh no, you can't have that. You can't have that toy. And the way I perceive that, like, oh, I'm not worthy of that. I don't deserve that. That is trauma that manifests within your body. And it's not that it's not there. It's like, oh, that's so silly and that's so small. I shouldn't even worry about it. But it's still in your body. It's still there and it's still going to affect you. It's still trauma. And trauma pops up all the time. So, for example, if you were like in a car accident when you were younger, trauma, and you haven't dealt with it, never been dealt with, you kind of suppressed it. Every time you're walking down the street and you hear a honk or a car, like your cortisol is going to go through the roof. Like you're going to stress yourself out daily, day to day, and you're probably feeling anxious all the time. You might have manifested even physical symptoms. You might have insomnia, depression, like who knows, because this trauma is popping up all the time because you've never dealt with it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like we go so many years. Like some clients I have are like, 30 and they haven't dealt with anything as a child or become aware of it. And
Yeah,
then it's like, fuck, you've been living with this trauma your whole life. Like,
yeah,
of course.
yeah. And like you say, it comes in physical symptoms as well. Like I suffered with like binge eating for probably about 3 and a bit years.
Mm,
And I had at that point chronic IBS, like,
yeah.
and people as well, the gut. I love learning about the gut. I've read a really good book, it's literally called Gut. And it's so interesting because she talks about all of it, like not just the physical but the trauma, the mental, because I think it's something like 90% of your serotonin is produced in the gut. And
Mm,
obviously serotonin is what helps you feel good. It helps with your sleep, with calming you down, all that sort of thing. And my instant reaction when people say that they have like stomach issues is normally it is like some form of stress.
yeah.
Because that honestly that was the case for me, but like chronic, I had to be rushed to the hospital once. I thought I was having a heart attack because I would
Mm,
get it really high and it was like in my chest, and it was all just
no way.
because I was in such a bad place with food. That food made me anxious. The thought of, like, if I went to my grandparents, for example, and we were having a roast dinner, because that wasn't my normal chicken and veg, and because I had a Yorkshire pudding or whatever, I'd get like really bloated, and then it would be like, oh, I've ruined my diet, so oh, I will have a pudding. And then even the thought of pudding, I would be like hyperventilating, like eating really
Yeah.
fast. And it's all that stuff that I don't think like people see, but that the IBS and the stress that just food was causing
Mm,
me was so painful. And it's so
mm,
nice, and it was crazy because as soon as I sorted my binge eating out myself. I don't know if you've read it. I read an amazing book by Mel Wells. Do you follow Mel Wells?
no, I've never heard of
You
her.
love her. She's right up your
Yeah.
street. She's all in it with the crystals and the vibes and the energy. So yeah,
Yeah.
you
Love
love
that.
her. I'll send you her profile. But
Yeah.
she wrote a book, and it's called The Goddess Revolution. And
Mm,
that honestly, she talks about relationship with food, and because that was her background. I think she was on Hollyoaks. I never really watched Hollyoaks. It's like a British crappy
okay.
TV show.
Yeah.
But it was brilliant, and it really turned my life around. And she did like affirmations on there, and I remember, and we sort of talked about this earlier, but I had to do like daily affirmations, and I remember it was so hard because I hated myself. Like whenever I'd look at myself, I'd be like, I hate you, you're
Yeah.
ugly, you're fat. And I wasn't at all. Like I've stayed this kind of size throughout my life, but in my mind, I was fat, I was ugly, I was all these things. And I had to start off so small. And I teach this to my clients as well, like if they're in quite a negative headspace, start really small. Talk about like your hair, like, or your eyebrows, or I like my my eyes, or I like my eye makeup today. And before you know it, you'll be able to get deeper and deeper and more connected to yourself, as opposed to like those little things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, that's really important. It's, yeah, like we talked about before, you can't go from 0 to 100 and be like, yeah, I'm the most beautiful woman in the world, because that's going to feel overwhelming as fuck. You're going to feel so
Yeah,
much resistance. So, yeah, starting small, like aiming towards just being neutral. Like, you
mhm,
don't have to love yourself straight away. You don't have to be in love with yourself. You can still have insecurities. Like, I still have insecurities, but I still love myself and I still appreciate my body.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean these thoughts don't happen and these insecurities don't happen. You're not immune to that
yeah,
ever. Mm.
yeah. And I think that's important as well, because people will follow self-love people, or for example, and they'll think, oh, they just love themselves. And it's like, yeah, but everyone does still have bad days. Do you know what I mean? Everyone does
Yeah.
still have days where they feel really disheartened. And I had someone ask me about what was the hardest thing for me dealing with like my postpartum body, and I I honestly was in such a good place with my postpartum body for probably about a year. Like, I did not care. I was like, I feel amazing. I'm breastfeeding. I've got this beautiful, healthy baby. I feel good. It was only as I got further away from being postpartum did my mindset sort of change, because I was like, right, he's a year old now. Shouldn't I have abs by now? Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't until later was I starting to kind of feel those insecurities come back, and I still have them. Do you know what I mean? I'm a happy, confident person, and I love my body, and I love how strong it is, and I love what it does for me. But I still have days where I'm like, oh, I wish this was a bit different, but it isn't, so it's fine. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's constantly just working on yourself and just figuring out what you need for that day, for that month, for that year. Do you know what I mean? Just sort of figuring out what you need.
Yeah.
But let's go back to those limiting beliefs. We were going to do sort of like the three biggest limiting beliefs. So I think let's dive into that, because I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, limiting beliefs. They all come back down to the same thing. So it's funny. It's always like, I can't do this or I can't do that. Even people signing up, like, I don't have enough money. But it all comes back to not thinking they're worthy, which comes from whatever trauma that may be. It's not thinking they'll succeed. It's not thinking they're good enough for this. That's why you see like so many people don't actually succeed. They want success, but they don't succeed because they don't think they're worthy of it. And if they succeed, that means they're going to fail, that there will be failure. So if you never succeed, you'll never have to fail. And that's why so many people just say, stay comfortable. And even I have like a 12-week program. It's called the Evolvement Project. And it is very like diving into limiting beliefs, working through their higher selves and becoming that so they can have everything they want with food. And yeah, it's crazy. Everyone has different limiting beliefs, but they all come back down to the same thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it always comes back down to childhood trauma, whether that's something that's happened to them or whether it's they perceived something in their childhood that their mum didn't love them, that their dad didn't love them because they said something or other. But yeah, it always comes back to worthiness. So it's just, you have to coach them through that they are worthy and make them actually truly believe that. Because if they are worthy, if they believe that, of course they can, eat and nourish their bodies how they want to. Of course they can train how they want to. Of course they can have that business and go through that business and do shit that makes them feel uncomfortable. But if they're constantly thinking they're not worthy, that will never happen for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of it as well is like people are valuing unresourceful states. So, for example, something I valued was stress, because when I valued stress, I didn't have to do anything. So within my business, if I was stressed, I could be like, oh, fuck, I'm really overwhelmed. I'm actually not going to do anything because I'm stressed. I'm just going to go scroll on my phone.
Yeah.
And that served me really well because I got to stay comfortable and I got to not do the work. So I valued that. But then it was like letting go of those values and stepping into a new value, a value that is going to serve me. So now my value is doing the work. That served me very well, because then comes growth and then I can up level and then I can impact. And a lot of people do that through training and nutrition. They value, people who binge eat, people who emotional eat, they value that for a reason. It's not that they value the food, they value either the thrill that it gives them. Maybe that's what they're valuing. So instead of going to something else for a thrill or going to something else for like peace, they go to food. And it's breaking that cycle and being like, okay, well, what else can you value? Or maybe they're valuing being miserable.
Yeah.
So when one thing's going really well, something else has to suffer. So someone was telling me about this woman, and she had a business, but then she also had back issues. So whenever her business was going amazing, her back issues played up because she had to be miserable. And then as soon as her business was going shit, her back issues would just disappear because she was miserable. So it's like almost that manifesting those physical symptoms and having outlets that aren't serving you.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love
Mm.
that. It's so true as well, and I completely get what you're saying about like the stress aspect of it. And like I would say that kind of manifests in that procrastination. Like for me, as soon as I am kind of like stressed, my default is scroll on Instagram. Like it's
Mm.
such a big default for me.
Yeah.
And it's so hard trying to come away from it. And literally the last couple of days I've been working on a webinar for my clients, and it's about um, productivity and how to be more productive. And it is really amazing how much time we actually have when we optimize that time. And I think just getting into the habit of, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. It comes down to creating habits, creating beneficial habits, and getting rid of less beneficial habits. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's crazy how when people are busy, you see things go well, or in some cases it could not go well. They're really busy, so they don't meal prep, or they don't have time to train, or whatever. But it's interesting to see how when a lot of the time people are busy, things start to go really well, and it's like because you're spending less time procrastinating, or do you know what I mean? There's just these barriers, like simple things like a client being like, oh, I'm short on my steps today, and I go both ways. I'm like, right, okay, that's fine, you can make it up another day or whatever. But then there's also that thing of, why have you not got those steps in? Is it because you didn't want to? Because in the UK we've had lovely weather, it's light until 10 p.m. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
You
wow.
can, if you've got 1,000, and I'll have it where clients will have like 1,000 or like 500 steps left, and I'm like, right, that's here, that's not
Mm.
physical, that's here, that's you almost going out of your way to not hit them. And it's interesting how it does just come back to what you're sort of willing to do, if that makes sense. Like there is, why can't you go out for an extra 5-10 minute walk to get them steps in? What is holding you back? And I think once you can figure that out, and again, it comes down to what you say, where they just don't feel that they're worthy enough, or they don't want to take that action. There's just something
Mm.
holding them back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if they take that action and they hit their steps every day, that means everything's going really well for them. And
Mm,
like, what do they have to fall back on? Like maybe when, yeah, maybe they do have a worthiness issue and they haven't felt like they've been loved throughout their life. And maybe being miserable means they get validation from their partner or their parents and they get love from them when they're in a shit state. But
yeah.
when they're in a good state, they don't get that love and
Mm,
that connection and that validation.
yeah.
So they've got to do something to make things shit so they get that. And
Yeah.
it's the same with the coach. It's like, okay, well, why are you blatantly like going under 500 steps if that's their goal? It's like, do you just want the attention to be like, oh, okay, yeah, like we can work through that, or yeah, is everything okay, or what's going on? It's
Mm,
like, no, they're valuing that external. So it's like, where can you get love and connection in your life so you don't have to self sabotage to find that elsewhere?
yeah. I think as well, obviously, when things are going well, depending on your support network, sometimes people will not actually give you positive, like they won't be positive towards it. Like if you're in a friendship group, and let's say predominantly your friendship group are like, say you've got a group of 5 girlfriends who drink and smoke and go out a lot, and you're trying to turn yourself around and smoke less, drink less, be healthier, be more active. If you're doing that, you may not be met with like, oh yeah, go on, get it girl. You might be met with, why are you doing that? Oh, why do you know what I mean? And it that stems from their own issues. But as well, like the amount of times I'll have clients talk about unsupportive family or unsupportive friends that just try and knock their efforts, and that is really interesting as well. And I think that actually plays a big part in people's journeys and what people do, because a lot of the time people don't want to be dealing with people's opinions, but people are going to have an opinion either way. Like, I've had it before where clients will obviously be tracking calories, and family member will be like, oh, why are you doing that? Why are you no, it doesn't matter, why are you tracking calories, la la la. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really important to set boundaries, and I talk about this in the webinar I've just done, about setting boundaries for yourself as well. So, like, for example, how hard is it to set a timer on your phone to how long you're going to be on Instagram for? It's not hard. It takes 10 seconds to say, right, I'm gonna have a scroll on Instagram, so I'm gonna set myself a timer for 10 minutes, and that's my time. Or setting a timer on Netflix, or do you know what I mean? It's not hard. You just need to do it. And if you've got barriers holding you back, then you need to figure out what they are and work through them, because that's what's holding you back.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so many things that go into this, but it can be a matter of ownership as well. Like, if my clients don't do something, if they don't hit their gym sessions, or, they eat something that doesn't serve them well, it's like, okay, well, you chose to do that. So you're going to own up to that.
Yeah.
Like, tell me you chose to do that. Tell me why you chose to do that, and then move the fuck on. Like,
Yeah.
if that didn't serve you, cool. Then tomorrow, don't do something that doesn't serve you. Like, eat what serves you,
Yeah.
and whatever choice you make is yours, and you're
Yeah.
doing that to yourself. And
Yeah.
then a big part of it is like, are they in this victim mentality, or are they growing?
Yeah.
So, like, cause versus effect, I call it. So cause, living at cause, living, the world is, everything is happening for you, not to you, and effect, being victim, people thinking everything is happening to them. So it's like, I know you would get so many clients say this and be like, oh, I couldn't get my steps in because it was raining. It's
Yeah.
like, no, the rain didn't make you not get your steps in. You still chose to
Yeah.
not get your steps in for whatever reason that may be.
Mm.
Or, like, when you get up and you have a shit day and you drop something, and then you drop water on yourself, and then someone does this and you're like, oh, of course that would happen to me. Like, everything's happening to me. Like, I'm just having such a shit day. And
Yeah.
then bad things keep happening. It's because you're not taking ownership and you're not taking control, and be like, okay, this is happening for a reason. What
Yeah.
is this trying to teach me? And how can I take control of this? How can I better myself and live at cause of everything?
Yeah. I love that. And that does just come back to that positive mindset. And I had to do a lot of that when I was actually working through coming away from binging. A lot of what I was doing was about gratitude and positive mindset and all that sort of thing. And I remember I missed the bus to work when I was a PT, and I went through like my recovery from binge eating just as I started being a PT, I think, or just before. But I remember getting on the bus, or missing the bus, sorry, and I was like, that's okay. And I literally said it. I was like, that's okay. Maybe I wasn't meant to get on that bus. Maybe there was something that I just didn't need. I wasn't meant to get on that bus. Do you know what I mean? And
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'm a great believer in like karma, and like everything happens for a reason. And I see it a lot, that there'll be things that will happen, and I'm like, oh, thank you, universe. Do you know what I mean? Like stuff
Yeah.
like that. I feel like we'll have to do another podcast and dive into that a little bit
Yeah.
more, because I love that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. But I'd love to, when I do this podcast, I always end on like a little sort of question. And the question is, what is something you would tell people listening to this to do for their mind, body, and soul? So one thing for each of those things.
Mm. It would be to really figure out what you're working towards, like what your true core value is. So you're wanting to work on your body, your mind, and your soul, but say you want to look better, you want to lose weight. Like, why do you want to lose weight? Maybe like your core value is love and connection. Like, for me, that's massive, because if I have love and connection, I have love for my body, I have love for myself, I have love for others. And then I'm going to want to do things that make me feel good, like meditate and journal. I'm going to want to nourish my body. I'm going to want to move around energy to make me feel good. It's diving deeper. Like, why are you actually wanting to better yourself? Why do you want to eat a certain way? Why do you want to look a certain way? What is all of that actually giving you? Like, what is your core need for that?
Mm.
And yeah, once you can figure that out, Like sometimes it takes being with a coach to figure that out. You have to dive deep, but everything just falls into place.
Yeah.
There's so much more behind it.
Yeah. What's something you do for like your mind, body, and soul? Like one of each. Like what's something you do for your mindset, one for your body, and one for your soul?
Mindset would be journaling and meditating 100%.
Hmm.
That just, yeah, sets you up. Like you said, like having that gratitude is the highest vibration you can be in. So once you've done that in the morning, if there's any limiting beliefs, like get them out, reframe it, have gratitude, there's your mood for the day. And it just sets you up so nice. Body is, I'm really learning to move in a way that serves me. So my whole life, obviously, I've been training in the gym and it's been very surface level for me. It's always been for looks, it's always been to build muscle.
Mm,
But now I'm like, okay, that's very surface level. What does my body need? So it's like, yeah, for my body, it's like knowing what I need every day. So some days it might be training in the gym, but some days it might be yoga, some days it might be walking, and some days I'm just focusing purely on nourishment,
mm,
on food, and just not even stressing about exercise because that's kind of comes back to mind. Like that's what makes me feel good.
yeah.
What was it? Mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Soul, yeah, soul's very relates to mind as well. And it's just tapping into that spirituality, knowing the universe has your back, like 100%, everything's happening for you. I remind myself that every single day and everything just falls into place always.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, my dear. And I will put Georgia's Instagram details in the caption of this podcast. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.